book lover. I am so glad you are here listening to my award-winning podcast, Thoughts from a Page, which is a member of the Evergreen Podcasts Network. The show is a passion project for me, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoy making it. I only interview authors whose books I have read and enjoyed, so if I am chatting with an author on the main show, it means that I really liked their book and feel comfortable recommending it to you. With so many books coming out weekly, it can be hard to decide what to read, so I work hard to find the best ones and share them with you. For more book recommendations and to find my backlist of interviews, visit my website at thoughtsfromapage.com. Are you looking for an engaging book community with unique bonus content? If so, I hope you will consider joining my Patreon community, which is filled with a wonderful group of readers. I offer 3 levels: page turners, lit lovers, and royal readers, and each level provides all sorts of cool bonus book content that you will not find elsewhere. If you're interested or want more information, the link to join is in my show notes. Today, Elena Armas returns to chat with me about The Long Game. Elena is a Spanish writer, a self-confessed hopeless romantic, and a proud book hoarder. Now she's also the author of an international bestseller, Goodreads Awards winner, and soon-to-be adapted film, The Spanish Love Deception, an instant New York Times and Sunday Times bestseller, The American Roommate Experiment. I hope you enjoy our conversation. And now for a quick break. For the last year, I have been focusing more on my health and eating habits. In connection with that, I have started drinking AG1 in the morning. When I started drinking AG1 daily, I could feel a real difference in my health and energy levels. That is because AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that supports your body's universal needs like gut optimization, stress management, and immune support. Since 2010, AG1 has led the future of foundational nutrition, continuously refining their formula to create a smarter, better way to elevate your baseline health. I recommend AG1 to all of my family and friends because the company has a team of doctors and scientists. It is tested for 950 contaminants and is NSF certified for sport. It is formulated based on the latest science, and it maintains high-quality standards. Thanks, AG1, for sponsoring my show. AG1 is a supplement I trust to provide the support my body needs daily. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/thoughtsfromapage. That's drinkag1.com/thoughtsfromapage. Check it out. And now back to my show. Welcome, Elena. I am so glad you are back on my show again. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just happy to be here. So thank you for having me again.
I loved our conversation last time, and I still tell people they need to go back and listen to it. So I'm thrilled to pieces that we get to chat again.
I am super thrilled too. Very excited.
Well, I'm a huge fan of yours, and so is my 20-year-old daughter. Every single time I get a galley of your book, she grabs it before I can even read it and zips right through it and then is like, Mom, you've got to read this one. It's even better than the last one. So she is a huge fan of yours. And I was telling you ahead of time that you're going to be in New York and she will be back in New York and hopefully is going to get to come see you on the tour. So that's really exciting.
That makes me so happy. I just, I mean, when you were telling me earlier, I had goosebumps down my arms. It makes me so happy. And I mean, she has good taste. I can say that.
She definitely does. And the other thing that's happening that she's bummed about is that you are going to Larkin Owl, which is one of my very favorite Texas bookstores with Allie Hazelwood, who's another one of her favorite people. But it's after she's gone back to New York, so we cannot drive over to Larkin Owl and see the two of you together. But she's very excited to see you in New York.
Well, I hope I get to see her in New York. As I said earlier, I fingers crossed that she can make it. And next time I will try to pull Allie to New York. If she's there, I mean, I don't know if there will be a next time. Ali is a very busy woman, and I love her books too, by the way. But yeah, I mean, book events, right? They're happy moments. They're amazing. That's why I love doing them, especially with other authors, because you can really you get to know so many people and so many like different readers through these events. So, anyways, I'm rambling right now.
Oh, no, I think that's exactly right. And I follow Larkin Owl. I get their emails. And so I'd seen months ago that they had booked the two of you all and they scored big. What a great event.
Yeah, actually, I mean, this is obviously, I think it's all, I mean, I guess it's like a joint force between the two of us, between Ali and I, but it's mostly her, I have to say. Her readership is absolutely bananas, like it's huge and very well deserved. But when I announced the event with Ali in Austin, I think it sold out like pretty much immediately. It was like only a few hours, if not 1 hour. I'm not sure. And the amazing team at the bookstore, they actually changed the venue so we could like get more people to come to see us. So I am so thankful for that, because the more the better for me. I just love events, as I said earlier, and the more people are there, the more happy I am after. So I am just very thankful that I get to do this with Ali and the rest of super incredible authors that I have on tour, and that people come see me. I mean, that is just such joy, and I'm very grateful.
It really is. It adds so much to the enjoyment of a book. Whether you hear the author talk ahead of time or afterwards, I feel like it always enhances my reading and my enjoyment of a story.
It's a fun, I mean, I'm happy to hear that. It's a fun thing that I never got to experience as a reader, actually, because having read, like, my favorite authors were in the US, and I have always been based in Europe. So I never got to do this as a reader. And now that I am on the other side, it makes me obviously happy to hear like the experiences from readers when they go to events, as much as experiencing them from the other side as an author. But I'm curious. I'm curious to go to one as a reader still. I think one day, maybe.
But everybody will be recognizing you and being like, you need to get up here.
Oh, I don't think so. I think I'm not there yet. I think I'm still, I still have some, what's...
Anonymity.
Yeah, anonymity. Thank you.
Let's talk about The Long Game. Will you give me a quick synopsis for those that won't have read it yet?
Ooh, this is my least favorite question. I'm sorry.
It can be very quick. You can do like 3 sentences. It's about soccer. 2 people fall in love.
I mean, basically, that's a good summary. So I'm gonna take that. Yes. So The Long Game is my small town baby, as I like to call it. People assume that it's like a soccer romance, but I don't really consider it a soccer romance. Like, it does have soccer, but it's like more of, a sprinkle here and there. It doesn't revolve completely around it. It's more of a small town set in fall, cozy cabin fever vibes. But anyways, it does have a lot of soccer elements, as I was saying. One of the main characters, the male lead, is a retired soccer player, a professional from England. So a pretty big deal, we can say. And the female lead is also a soccer executive, so an exec who has been disgraced from her life and her job. And they meet in this small town that I was talking about, and they are forced to work together on a team who happens to be an under 10, little league team. So chaos and romance ensue after that, as you might have imagined.
Well, and I think people are seizing on the soccer aspects because your book keeps getting analogized to Ted Lasso and things like that, because that show's been so popular. And then recently, with all of this drama with the poor women's Spanish soccer team.
Oh, gosh.
There's a lot of soccer in the news. And I know those poor women. And I was just thinking about you because you are Spanish. And then the soccer aspects of it. I thought there's just been a lot in the news and media related to soccer lately. And so I'm sure that that aspect of your story is also being seized on.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I get it. I don't think I will get into the scandal of the soccer of the national team with this whole silly, not silly. I mean, it shouldn't even happen at this day and age. I just find it so baffling, to be honest, that we are even like experiencing this at this point. But anyways, but yes, about the Ted Lasso parallels, I do see it. And the funny thing is that, like, I agree with that comparison to The Long Game. I think it has a lot of similar themes, that are explored in the novel that are also like talked about in the show. And funny enough, when I was binging Ted Lasso, as everyone else did, I also like, for some reason, like, sure, it is a soccer show, but at the same time, it's not really about that. Like, it's about more. So that's also something that it has in common with this book. Like, it has soccer, but it's about like a lot more. It's not just the soccer, as much as I know that's a selling point at the moment, which I love. But the novel explores like a lot of things that are unrelated to sport, which is great in romance, I guess.
Exactly. I think those parallels that you're describing are exactly right, because Ted Lasso is sort of a story about soccer, but it's really a story about community and a team and a family and found family. I mean, there's so many things happening there. And your story is the same way. It has soccer as a background, but there's a lot of other things happening. And yes, it is just horrifying in this day and age that things like what just happened to this poor female soccer player are still happening. But it's not like that is an isolated incident. Unfortunately, over and over again, these crazy things keep happening. And we all keep saying, how is that happening in 2023? So someday, hopefully, we will get to the point where we don't all have to be horrified over and over again.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. Someday.
I hope so, too. Yeah, someday. Exactly. So tell me about writing your third book. I know your first book was a different journey. And so then your second book, you already had partially or fully written, correct? When you moved over to Atria. So was this the first book that you wrote once you had the publishing contract?
Yes, it is. And it was, I think, in my specific journey, every book that I've written has been so different from the one before. It's just like I when people ask me, oh, which book was harder or easier to write, I have no answer to that question, because I cannot tell, because every one of the books were such a different experience, like top to bottom, like absolutely different.
That makes sense. And you did have a different publishing journey. So I'm sure by the time you got to this one, you were probably approaching it a little differently.
Oh, yes. Yes. No, that's, of course, yeah. I mean, The Long Game is the first book that I write completely within like the traditional publishing world. So I followed the whole process from the beginning to the end. That is the first book that I ever got to do that. So it was very, I mean, I don't want to use the word it was hard, but it was like I struggled because it was so, again, every book was different, but this one probably was the most different from the three of them. And I mean, I am lucky that I got to learn a lot. I struggled throughout the process, but I think it also helped me like come a long way after I finished. And now, for example, that I'm working on a new book, because the clock never stops. Now that I'm working on a new book that is again fully within the traditional publishing world. So I'm working with the same editor and it's gonna follow the same process. I'm finding myself a little bit more like I know what I'm doing, something that I was like lacking previously. It's something that I was even scared to think or say or admit. Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, this is something that I've said a lot in interviews. Like, I always say I have no idea what I'm doing. Now, for the first time, I think with this fourth book, I'm learning, like I'm feeling a little bit more secure in what I'm doing. And all of that is thanks to what I experienced writing The Long Game.
Well, and I guess as you're speaking, I'm thinking maybe we should back up a little bit for those that didn't listen to your earlier interview or maybe aren't familiar with your work. So talk about how you began. I know your story, but everybody else may not. Can you give just a quick synopsis of starting from the beginning and what happened?
Of course. So my debut, The Spanish of Deception, I self-published. So I did not write or edit or publish with a publishing house. I did on my own. And a few months after the book was on sale, so out in the world, it got viral, I guess we can say, on TikTok. And it was like the first domino piece to like fall and basically change my life. I mean, I don't want to be dramatic, but it really did. Like my life flipped, my career flipped. I did like a complete 180 after that because the book got picked up by a publisher. I also signed with an agent. I could quit my full-time job, which was unrelated to writing or books or literature. I am an engineer. So yeah, so that's like the first, that's what happened with my first book. And then when they acquired the Spanish Love Deception, they also did the sequel. Well, it's not a sequel, let's say like a companion novel. It's more of a duet, so they're standalones, both of them. But the draft for that book was already more or less written. It was finished, the first draft for that book, when the deal was signed. So that was, again, like another book that I had written on my own, but that then it was like dropped into this traditional world. Like I was not a self-published author anymore. So I got to like work with an editor on a draft that had already been written or kind of done by the time that was picked up. And then with the third book, that was in a new contract, so in a new book deal, and I got to develop the idea and to write the book and publish it like completely with my publisher. So as you see, that is the explanation to my answer to the previous question. They are very, very different experiences. And now that I am on book 4 and I got to like learn from every one of the previous ones, I finally am able to say that I'm a little bit like, I know more or less what I'm doing, kind of.
The Spanish Love Deception had already been out in the world, as you said, self-published, was a Goodreads Choice nominee. I think maybe, did it win?
It was a winner. Yeah, it was the winner.
Yeah, it was a winner. That's what I was thinking. And then Atria picked it up. So they pretty much just took it, didn't do a lot with it, maybe copy edited it a little bit, but published it because it had already been out in the world. So the process for how each book was handled was vastly different. Then the second one went through editing, but it was ready to go. But then when you're writing the long game, you're writing it within this process, working with your editor, your agent from the beginning. So it's all kind of different. I just thought that would be interesting for people to hear your journey because it's a little different than other people's journeys.
Oh, yes, it's completely different. And it is, I mean, now you see more of these, similar journeys with publishing houses picking up like a lot of self-published books.
For sure.
It's happening more often than when it happened to me, I think. Like it kind of started more or less around 2021, which was when the Spanish Love Deception was picked up by Atria. But now it's a pretty common occurrence, I would say. Like at least being inside the world, I see it happening more than when it happened to me, which I didn't have like many people to go to be like, what should I do? I don't know what is happening. Which was pretty much where my head was at when the whole thing happened. Because it's a pretty intense thing to happen to you, and it was a very intense journey. And actually, I think only recently I've like calmed down from the cloud I was basically writing since 2021. I've just realized what actually happened.
Just had to be an incredible whirlwind. And the other component that we didn't touch on was that you were a romance book blogger with a very large following. So the other aspect was that you had read and reviewed so many romance books. So you knew what to look for and you knew the tropes and you knew kind of the process for what readers were looking for in romance novels.
Yeah, I think when I wrote The Spanish Love Deception, I was never thinking of what readers were looking for, but I was just sure of what I wanted in a book. So I applied that to writing, and I had never taken like a creative writing course. I had never properly learned to write or, to publish or self-publish a book. Again, like when I said, like back in the day when I would do interviews and say, I literally had no idea what I was doing. I really had no idea what I was doing. I was just going with my gut, and I was applying instinct. And I had read, as you said, I had read and reviewed so many books that I really I knew what I wanted in my book. And it just took a little bit of craziness, and bravery to say, yeah, I can do this. I can write a book. That's how I was seeing things back in that moment, I think. I wish I had written my thoughts in a diary or something, because now I would love to read that and see what the heck I was thinking. But I never wrote that. And now everything is a bit of a blur. But I do remember writing and doing that with no expectations and no goal, no objective, except, writing a book just because I thought I could. And it's very cocky of me, but it worked out well. So I'm going to pat myself on the back on that.
Well, you should. But I think when you read and review so many, you have a very good sense for what works and what doesn't work, or at least what you feel works for you and what doesn't work for you. So that's what you're saying. You're writing for you, but for the things you felt, okay, this is what I love in a book, or this is what I don't love in a book. And clearly that resonated with people.
Yeah, I'm very lucky that so many people loved Spanish Love Deception.
Yeah.
It was definitely a surprise, but obviously a good one.
Yes, exactly. Well, what surprised you the most about the publishing process? I know you said you finally feel like you've come down a little bit from it. I'm sure you have thought a lot about it. Was there something that you didn't expect or that went differently than you thought it might?
So the thing, I have to preface this by saying that I didn't know anything about the publishing world. All I knew was how to self-publish, which is is vastly different to how things work in a publishing house. And that I learned. So I was already new to that world. But about how people would get, and not people, writers, how writers would get an agent, or how what was the job of an editor, or the time that a book took to get printed, this kind of stuff, I knew nothing. So everything was new to me, and I knew nothing. I only knew a few stereotypes. That's a better way to put it. I only knew a few stereotypes, a few things that I might have read on Twitter or social media. I was not well versed in publishing at all. I was basically in diapers, like a baby. I got to learn everything. And one of the things that not shocked me, but surprised me, because I think is one of the stereotypes or one of the misconceptions that I had read about, or I had stumbled upon, was the fact that an editor tells you what to do, and it forbids you of doing certain things, or you have to ask for permission as a writer to do other things. I feel like that's some kind of misconception, or maybe it's a fear that some people have. Somehow it got transferred into me unconsciously. So it was a surprise when I started working with my editor, and I realized that it's not that kind of relationship. The relationship is about working together, and your editor is going to make suggestions that you can either take or not, and you're not forbidden of doing anything. It's more of a collaboration between the creative mind and the mind that's well versed in editing, and that is paying attention to different things than you might be paying attention to. So that was a nice realization, I would say, and a good thing that I learned, because compared to when you self-publish a book, you're on your own. You have someone, or you should have someone, to copy edit your book, to correct it, obviously, to proofread it. But you don't have that collaborative work with an editor unless, you go to other roles like a critique partner or a beta reader, all that stuff that I will not get into. But it's all a collaboration. And that's I think is a pretty common misconception from what I've seen online.
I think that's right. And I think, as you said, generally an editor is much more collaborative and brings often a wealth of experience about the market and the readership and different things like that. They're just really trying to make your book better. But if you're pushing back and saying, this aspect is really important to me, they're not going to say, okay, you must pull it out. They're going to be like, great, leave it.
Yeah, exactly. So I am known for writing like long scenes, long chapters, long books in general. That was one of the biggest criticisms of the Spanish Love Deception that I saw as an author, like from readers. And I'm working hard at not fixing that, but like maybe polishing that aspect of my writing. And for example, my editor has to trim like a lot of the things that I write in general. And to go back to revisit the fact that is all a collaboration in the long game, there was like a certain scene that I was suggested to cut out of the book. And I was very attached to it. And like the point my editor was making is this is not adding anything to the story besides just being there. Which I was objectively, I was seeing that, but I was very attached to the scene. And I was like, nope, I think it's staying. Like, and I didn't even need to be stubborn about it. I just said that I would rather the scene to be in the book. And that was accepted. Like, as I said, it's all a suggestion. I'm glad I left it, to be honest. It's one of my favorite scenes. So, but anyways.
Well, and I think that's important. I mean, it is your book. And so it's important if there was something like that you felt was an integral part of the story. It's great you speak up and it's great they listen.
Yes, definitely. So if anyone is like asking themselves, oh my gosh, how does that work? Is your editor going to boss you around? No, they're not. They are really not. They're just there for you and to help.
Absolutely. Well, Elena, before we wrap up, what have you read recently that you really liked?
Ooh, so I have been reading. So I was lucky enough to get an advanced copy of Lana Ferguson's new novel. She released recently The Nanny, which is like a contemporary rom-com about a single dad and a nanny, as the title implies. And now her next book is like a paranormal rom-com, and it's like the perfect mix between the two worlds. Is called The Fake Mate, and is about shapeshifters, so werewolves who are doctors, ear doctors, and it is amazing. It really has like the best things from both worlds. It has all these paranormal elements that we love from that genre, and then it has like all the rom-com vibes. And to anyone who's listening who has read The Spanish Love Deception and loved Aaron Blackford, they're gonna love the hero in this story, because it's like as if Aaron Blackford was a werewolf and an ear doctor. It really is. They would be best friends. So I recommend that to anybody who's like in the mood to try something different, maybe from contemporary. And if anyone is like looking for a contemporary romance, they can read Lana's previous book, The Nanny, who's like super, is also a rom-com, is super fun, is a very exciting read. And by exciting, I obviously mean steamy. No, it's wonderful. So I really recommend those two.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm not familiar with her, so I'll have to look her up.
Oh, please do. And let me know how it goes.
I will. Well, Elena, thank you so much for coming back on my show. It's always so wonderful to chat with you. And I can't wait for everybody to read The Long Game.
Oh, thank you so much. And I hope I get to see your daughter in New York. Fingers crossed that she can make it. And I hope I get to be back for the next one too.
I hope so as well. And I hope you get to see Emily in New York as well.
Oh, thank you.
I'm Ken Harbaugh, host of Burn the Boats from Evergreen Podcasts. I interview political leaders and influencers, folks like award-winning journalist Soledad O'Brien and conservative columnist Bill Kristol, about the choices they confront when failure is not an option. I won't agree with everyone I talk to, but I respect anyone who believes in something enough to risk everything for it. Because history belongs to those willing to burn the boats. Episodes are out every other week wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Allison Holland, host of the Kennedy Dynasty podcast. Equipped with a microphone and a long-term fascination of the Kennedy family, I am joined by an incredible cast of experts, friends, and guests to take you on a fun, relaxed, yet informative journey through history and pop culture. From book references to fashion to philanthropy to our modern expectations of the presidency itself, you'll see that there is so much more to Kennedy than just JFK or conspiracy theories. Join me for the Kennedy Dynasty podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I would love to connect with you on Instagram or Facebook, where you can find me at Thoughts from a Page. If you enjoy the show, please consider joining my Patreon group to access bonus content and support the podcast. If you have a moment to rate the show or subscribe to it wherever you listen to your podcasts, I would really appreciate it. It makes a big difference. And please tell all of your friends about Thoughts from a Page. Word of mouth does wonders to help the show grow. The book discussed in this episode can be purchased at my bookshop storefront, and the link is in the show notes. I hope you'll tune in next time.
I'm Ken Harbaugh, host of Burn the Boats from Evergreen Podcasts. I interview political leaders and influencers, folks like award-winning journalist Soledad O'Brien and conservative columnist Bill Kristol, about the choices they confront when failure is not an option. I won't agree with everyone I talk to, but I respect anyone who believes in something enough to risk everything for it. Because history belongs to those willing to burn the boats. Episodes are out every other week wherever you get your podcasts.